You're listening to the Nightlife podcast with Indira Naidoo.
Okay, have you sampled the naturist life? Gone nude? Stripped off? Bared it all in public? My producer's nodding a bit too enthusiastically. I'm not sure what that means. Well, do you? Would you? Could you? For some people, the idea of being seen naked anywhere but the bathroom or bedroom is very daunting. While for others, the fact that there are laws against public nudity in most places is something they live with, but very reluctantly. These are the naturists, and tonight on Nightlife, we're keen to find out how big a following naturism has in Australia in 2020. Are young people more or less likely to find opportunities to gather together naked in social settings, or is the Australian nudist more likely to be a baby boomer or a Generation Xer? And are there tensions between the two generations? Also with us tonight, we have in our Brisbane studios Dan Adamic, founder of the Young Nudists of Australia, together with his partner and fellow YNA member Natasha Day. Welcome, Dan and Natasha.
Welcome,
Hello.
Thank you.
And from Port Stephens in New South Wales, Stuart Whelan, former operator of Le Chateau Naturiste in Port Stephens, New South Wales. He's a publisher and editor of Tan magazine. How are you going, Stuart?
Very well, thanks.
Terrific. Well, first of all, I need to ask you guys, since you are naturists and nudists, are you wearing clothes?
Sadly, yes.
Yes, sadly, yes.
And I am as well.
Well, I'm the odd one out then.
You're not. Are you not wearing clothes at the moment?
No, I'm not. Naked by choice, dressed by necessity, and fortunately I'm speaking to you from home. So
Wow, that's amazing. So is that because you're at home, or would you be outside home also nude as well like this?
only on legally prescribed beaches.
Wow. Well, that's exciting. I think this is the first that I've actually interviewed someone who's nude.
That you know of.
Well, that I know of. That's true, Natasha. Well, the other thing I wanted to know is, when did all of you first realise that you loved being nude? Stuart, since you are nude, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Look, I came to it relatively late in life, actually. I was having a bit of a look around the Middle Head area in Sydney and noticed that there was a clothing optional beach, and I thought, goodness me, in my 40-plus years, I have never been naked on a clothing optional beach. So I went down, somewhat secretly, I might add, didn't let my wife know, and went down and found it to be an absolutely amazing and transformational experience. I felt like as I was peeling off my clothes, I was peeling off all my cares and worries, and I came home and my wife looked at me and said, "My goodness, you're beaming. Where have you been?" So of course I told her.
Oh, and that was the first time you really experienced that rush.
That's right. And I must say, even today, I've been living naked basically for the last 7 years. Only trips down to the local shopping centre, which for the necessities.
Oh, why has that stopped you? Why haven't you gone down to the shopping centre naked?
Look, if it was legal, I would.
And what about you, Dan? When did it start for you?
Well, it basically started when I was a small child, really. I think that's anyone, really. As a small child, we were all sort of naked at home. It was always encouraged if you wanted to wear clothes, and if you didn't want to wear clothes, it's fine, whatever you're comfortable in doing. So basically, I was exposed when I was younger. I had parents that did endeavour on the lifestyle when they were in their early 20s. And, it sort of carried on through when I was growing up. When I got to like a teenage age and obviously becoming a bit more body conscious and a bit more body aware, you sort of stop. But then I got back into it when I was about 16. And then from ever since then, it has grown massively. And I've loved the lifestyle for what it is and what values it brings, and especially to families as well, you know.
And Natasha, what about you? What was your entry into nudism?
It was meeting Dan. So he got me into it. I've always been a fan of the beach life and, going topless at beaches. So taking one step closer taking off your bathers at the bottom. It's really no big deal. So, and there's, being at the beach, laying in the sun with nothing between you and the sun is wonderful.
As long as you got a very good SPF.
Always.
Always.
Nudist best friend.
So was that part of the attraction to each other?
Oh, not necessarily. It was just something that Dan was very open with, and I was intrigued. And I was like, okay, so tell me more about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, Stuart, probably first, how do you define the difference between naturism and nudity? Is there a difference?
Look, there's a subtle difference only. Naturism is actually a life philosophy. It's basically respect for self, respect for others, and respect for your environment. And that's through the practice of social nudity. The way I sort of say it, I basically categorise the people who enjoy clothes-free recreation into three groups. You've got the naturists who, even when they're clothed, they've still got that mindset. So it does become a way of life. The second one is nudists, people who enjoy the social interactions and the fact that they enjoy that without clothes. And the third are the skinny dippers, and these are the ones that are happy to get their gear off on the beach and enjoy the water and all the friendships, etc., but they wouldn't do it in an otherwise social situation, such as at a nudist club or a gathering of like-minded people. So, and that pretty much covers most people who enjoy clothes-free recreation.
Right, and I think more of us would be open to being nude in public if we looked like Elle Macpherson, wouldn't we? Does it matter to you that other people are looking at your body and possibly judging you?
I take my clothes off for myself, not for anyone else. And that's the great liberating thing about this lifestyle. Nobody really cares. Look, the way that my wife put it when we first went down to the Cobblers Beach in Sydney was she just looked open-mouthed and said, we're all the same. I mean, even the two sexes. Yes, there are differences, but we've got more in common than we have differences, really, when you look at it. And so, it's not something that I'm worried about if I'm carrying a few extra pounds or got a bit of cellulite or battle scars of life. It doesn't matter. Nobody's really all that interested.
Well, that sounds like a very healthy attitude to your body. What about you, Natasha? Is that summarise your attitude to it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, being naked gave me a lot more positivity towards my own body.
Oh, how do you explain that?
Well, once, like Stuart said, once you are amongst other nudists, you just see that we're all the same. Everyone's a different size and shape, and after a while, you don't notice people's bodies. You learn more about them as people rather than, superficially of what they're wearing, so to speak. So, for me, it just gave me a lot more confidence in myself.
And Dan, are you a buff type of guy? Are you proud of your body?
Well, I was actually quite heavy set as a kid, growing up as a teenager, and then in my early 20s, I lost a lot of weight, went to the gym, pumped a lot of iron, went through that transformation, and and sort of laxed off the gym now, and I've got the physique, but I do not take care of it at this point in time. That's for sure. I love pizza way too much, guys. So.
Well, we've got Eddie here from North Sydney who calls himself a nudist. He would like to make a little comment about what we're talking about. Hello, Eddie.
Hi there.
How are you going? So you call yourself a nudist. What does that mean to you?
That means that the way I live my life is mostly naked, I guess.
I guess so.
Be that in the house or we at the beach or at some of the clubs that are around New South Wales.
Are you naked now?
Yes.
I'm starting to feel like the odd one out. And what do your family and friends think about it?
Well, the family doesn't. Outside of the extended family doesn't really know. I don't think they would. They're a bit more traditional, shall we say.
Well, I hope they're not ABC listeners, otherwise you've outed yourself.
No, they're not, thank goodness. But yeah, we've got some friends who, they're not nudists, but they understand, and some of them are sort of keen to test the waters, so to speak, to venture out, and they're getting there. But hopefully, we'll have some friends who are very close friends who would join us, I guess.
Yeah, very close, I'm sure. All right, Eddie, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
Getting back to you guys, what do your friends and families think about your lifestyle? Stu, you mentioned your wife before. Is she now... sorry, Stu. Has she now come around and engages with nudist activities with you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we found was that her experience was a little different than mine, not so transformational, but fortunately for me, she was quite happy to pursue the lifestyle, and we went on vacations up and down the coast, staying at different naturist resorts, and enjoyed it and enjoyed the interactions. And at that point, when I decided to take an early retirement and buy Le Chateau, she was 100% in agreement. And of course, that's why I say for 7 years now, we've basically lived clothes-free.
And you, as I mentioned in the intro, you publish and edit this naturist magazine, Tan magazine, that a lot of people would have seen in the news agencies. What sort of activities does your magazine cover, and where are these clubs and resorts you go to? Yeah,
look, there are plenty of resorts and clubs in Australia, but they are spread around. And probably the one thing that we do need is more of them, to be honest, because they can be quite a distance between resorts if you're travelling. But look, we've had there's quite a number of clubs that are members of the Australian Naturist Federation that are all through the different states. The only place that we don't have a good representation is Tasmania, and I guess the summers might be a little short there. I don't know.
And what about you, Dan and Natasha? What do your families think? Because it sounds like your family growing up, Dan, was very open to it. What about you, Natasha? What are your family like?
Well, my family know, but it's not something that I was really brought up with.
When you say your family know, is that like coming out? Do you have to choose a moment where you say, Mum and Dad, sit down, there's something I need to tell you?
Well, they actually discovered it because I was on national TV naked talking about it. So it was like, surprise.
Sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
So, yeah. That's
and what was their reaction?
They were surprised, but they were like, okay.
Really?
Okay, there was no problem, but they were very surprised. But, that's me. They know me. It's my usual.
Right, but do they join you in your activities?
No, they do not. I don't think they would be up for that, no.
All right, now we've got Emma from Parramatta who is also on the line. Hello, Emma. How are you?
Yes, hi, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
And yourself?
I'm very well, very well. Now, you also identify as a nudist. How do you incorporate that into your life?
Oh, yes, I do. I do identify as a nudist, and quite easy, actually. It's a lifestyle. So, generally, my husband and I, we go together to either beach in summers, or we go to all of these nudist retreats when the weather is good. And at home, of course, like both of us, we are free and nude. So.
And is that what you enjoy about it, that sense of freedom?
Exactly, actually, that is it. It's a sense of freedom, and changes, I think, very much your mindset as well. So it's the way you see things in life, and that actually did happen to me. So it's a liberation, really.
Terrific. Okay, we'll carry on. Emma, thanks for joining us tonight.
Don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go now to Patricia, who's in Ryde. And Patricia, you discovered nudity after a brush with breast cancer.
That's right. So I'm coming up to my 10 years of since breast cancer, but only really discovered the nude beaches for a starting point close to 4 years ago. And honestly, complete life-changing experience. I've always been my worst enemy when it comes to my own body. I've never had a great body. But finding the people there just not only friendly but accepting, and even though I've had a mastectomy and I haven't had reconstructive surgery, now I must say I was 30 at the time, so I'm almost 40 now, when I was first diagnosed and had the surgery. The acceptance and how liberating and free I felt. I've actually never been happier in my life when it comes to my own body image, and the fact that I'm still here after going through the whole experience that I went through. And I'm really trying. I'm more comfortable being naked around the house. I do have kids, so I am very cautious of it, but also showing them that, you don't need to be the perfect model to be comfortable in your own skin. And that's all thanks to nudism that I've actually finally discovered that love for myself, my own body, which is great.
Yeah, that is absolutely terrific, and terrific that you got through your breast cancer. But what was the point where you actually went, okay, I've survived this, and now I want to explore nudity? How does that happen?
So I'm single, and I met somebody that said, ever been to the nude beach? And I'm like, no, I haven't actually. And so the first time we met up and we went there, and I was like, look, I'm not too sure how comfortable I'm going to be. So I kind of left, the top part on. But then after about 2 minutes, I was like, this is great. Why don't more people do this?
Right.
And at home, so when I'm home alone especially, I walk around. I'm very lucky that I live on a property where it's very private, so I'm not going to freak out the neighbours too much. But it's just so liberating. I never actually thought that I would ever have this kind of experience, and more importantly, have love towards my own body and be proud of the fact that it's just so accepting. There's such a genre where, being naked is wrong, and body image, and there's so much stigma that it brings down so many young people especially. And if only more people were more open to it. And at first, I told my sisters about it pretty early on, but then I've actually told my parents ever since. And whilst they were surprised, they weren't really surprised at the fact that I go nude beaches or resorts or things like that. Mm-hmm. So each day I'm actually more comfortable, and I tell more people of my experiences, because I believe that everyone should have an experience, not necessarily be naked, but they need to find something that makes you feel the way nudism does. Like it's an experience that I never imagined possible.
Wow.
So it's great.
Wow, that is so inspiring. That is really inspiring.
It is. And if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend you do try it.
Yeah, I'm taking it off as we speak. It's all coming off, Patricia. Thank you so much.
And a great segment. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. Stuart, that was extraordinary hearing that from Patricia. Do you think that there are a lot of people who could benefit after going through these sorts of body issues and when you go through illnesses and diseases like cancer, where nudism can actually be a wonderful way to recuperate?
Absolutely. In fact, there are so many women who have I've met at beaches, at resorts, and they have a very similar story. It's very empowering just to realise that this is a wonderful tool, this body that we have, but that's not really who we are. We're what's inside, and to put so much emphasis on the externals is just folly, really. It's based on convention, and really convention has led us down some pretty dark paths if you look at it. So it's a fantastic story that has been repeated over and over, and so so glad that that experience was
a positive one for Patricia.
A positive one, yeah.
And Natasha, why do you think it is that we look at nudism almost the opposite way that Patricia just explained to us, that we see it as something that, you know, our bodies we're ashamed of and we don't want to be exposed and to people to judge us, where in fact from Patricia's example it does the opposite to our self-esteem. Why do we see it on the flip side?
I think it's just the way society is about nakedness. They see it as being sexual or rude or gratuitous when it's really quite not. It's, you know, it's like similar to the opinions of people seeing women that breastfeed. It's like you can't get more natural than that. And I think if people start embracing their own body, they don't necessarily have to do it around others, but if they could be naked in their own space, at home, by themselves, I think they'll have a lot more appreciation for their own body.
Yeah, good point. Now, Dan, you established the Young Nudists of Australia. Was part of that reason to try to get proper information and educate people better about this?
Yeah, that's correct. We endeavoured on that idea because we felt it was somewhat not represented correctly. We were asked by the Australian Naturist Federation to sort of lead the way for a younger generation to get more into the lifestyle, but having the resources and relatable persons within the lifestyle. That time I was 28, 29 years of age, already amongst social media within Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and getting amongst the lifestyle. But yes, that is right. We try and deliver the right message and try to deliver the message that people can go to locations and trusted locations that's going to offer security, which is foremost the most important part, and safety, and the best locations to go to. So within that, we've developed a small empire of young nudies, basically, and we're expanded to the 40-plus demographic as well because they wanted young people to represent who they are as well. They felt it was necessary for younger people to represent because sometimes, the word within, naturism, when it's led by the older generation, can sometimes not be taken seriously. So they're the difficulties that we've had and encountered along the way, and we've had our issues as well, where people just don't agree with having this age separation of young generational nudists, and when everything should be as one, Yeah,
so, I'll come to that a bit later about the difference between the different generations, but I want to pick up that point you said about people's concern about their safety and their security, because without clothes, we all feel, most of us feel a lot more vulnerable.
Correct,
To people who are, to pervs or predators or things. How do you reassure people, and what environments do you create so they feel safe?
Well, we created a vetting system where it required people to actually produce an 18-plus card or their driver's license or a passport just to show and to identify themselves. And safe netting, basically, we do ask people who would like to verify themselves that they provide a picture of themselves clothed. We do get a lot of people going, do I have to be naked in this? No, we do not require you to be naked. But we require just the verification photo of themselves holding up a driver's license and a bit of paper with their name and their details, and then we ask for their driver's licenses or passports. We ask them to blur out their license numbers, their signatures, and all that, because it's not really required for the verification process. But we promise that that their information is destroyed accordingly, because that's only basically used for the verification process, really. So people find comfort in the idea and knowing that they can actually reach out to us and actually have real people within social media. Some might have pseudo Facebook accounts that doesn't match their personality and who they are, but they want to know that they're joining a group of people who are going to be all verified, all in the same book, all in the same cover. Everyone is verified, and it has worked for us tremendously.
Yes, because the concern would be that the wrong sort of people are infiltrating these sorts of groups.
Yeah, and they will. People who are dead set keen on trying to destroy the lifestyle through their own sexual prospects. It destroys it, basically. They try and break through the barrier, and they try and get through and try to get access, which they can't. But they do try and break through that sort of process, and they do. They're basically wanting to get within groups or within a movement just to have a look and to have a perv and to talk to women or talk to men. Yeah, it still does happen. Like, we do verify people, and we still have the occasional person that will go and message everybody and send inappropriate pictures without consent, So it does happen. And we have, the code of behaviour that we've got that locks that down pretty hard. It's a zero standing. We do not have second chances. If you're found to do it and we provide with evidence to show that your misconduct has been shown, we immediately remove people. And we educate everybody around, this is a safe space, this is a spot to be. If you're going to play around and carry on, you're not welcome here anymore.
Well, you did mention before that obviously your group is targeting young nudists, but what sort of people within that group tend to join your group?
Obviously, being a male-dominated sort of lifestyle, we do have obviously women as well that join. But we average, I think we're having average 25 to 35-year-olds joining YNOA. That's the average that we get flying through the doors. We do have younger naturists. We do have people that have just turned 18. It's their birthday and they want to join. They've heard about us and they're so glad that there's an actual young demographic naturist movement here in Australia. Like 4 years ago, there was just non-existent.
Right.
I thought I was the only young nudist in Australia until I met a friend of mine, which was Matt, who's our Sydney representative and co-founder, and now we've boomed, 600 plus people, and it's just growing every single day. I never knew that there was so many young naturists about, and social media has helped that too,
And you mentioned earlier about the difference between young nudists and the older generation. What is the main difference, you think?
Well, we're all naked at the end of the day. We're all nudists. We had to create we all tossed and turned between, do we, drop the age number and what would be considered young? Technically, as people say, I'm still young at heart. Well, you are. But we wanted to create that zone where younger people can feel that they're in a young group of people without, having people who are beyond 40, in their 60s, because you can guarantee you'll find someone who's in their 60s that is a naturist or has endeavoured on the lifestyle. So we believe that creating a little safe space for young naturists can be relatable, amongst younger peers. So
we're talking tonight all things nudism and naturism with Dan Adamic, founder of the Young Nudists of Australia, and his partner Natasha Day, and Stuart Whelan from Port Stephens in New South Wales. He's the publisher and editor of Tan magazine. If I can go to you now, Stuart, do you agree with those differences between the generations towards the nudist attitude?
Yeah, look, I think quite obviously, as in the broader society, there are overlaps between the ages. In the naturist movement, we also had a couple of generations that seemed to be a bit more prudish. I just in the dozen or so years that I look at the attendances at Cobblers Beach, and it was basically 35 plus. You very rarely saw people younger than 35 down there. Nowadays, thankfully, that's not the case. There are a lot more younger people going down there. As Dan mentioned, social media is an absolute great way for people to see that there are a lot of people involved. But having said that also, we've had guests here interacting in a B&B situation that, there were a 78-year-old couple and a 25-year-old couple, and got on like a house on fire because of the fact that that they've got some shared interest. But this is where Dan's group is doing a great job. Is if you're a young person or young couple, say, and you want to explore the local nudist scene, and your first introduction to that is people your parents or even grandparents' age, that's not going to really engender a great deal of confidence.
No.
So that's why it's always been the case that people tend to have their entree into this lifestyle through beaches, through social interaction. Pool parties have been organised by like-minded people, those types of things. providing the entertainment and the social interactions that's required by that age group. And then as they move on through their journey through life, they might start a family, get a mortgage, they move into the 40-plus category, and they will be happier to mix with people 40 to, say, 50 or 40 to 60. And so they might tend to join clubs that offer a different style of the naturist experience, travel overseas, go on nude cruises, those types of things, which might be unavailable for the 20-odds.
Yeah. Well, Natasha, do you find it that you prefer to be nude with people your own age rather than older people?
I do. I mean, I don't mind being nude with either generation. I think it just comes down to more about, I guess, in my experience, I've had a lot of inappropriate comments from the older generation because they think it's funny or it's humorous. You know, it's just older ways of conversing with people, whereas the younger generation are a little bit more respectful, know your boundaries, know what's, appropriate to say and not say when you're naked in particular. So, I have a problem with a lot of the older men in a few of the groups that I've been, resorts rather, I've been to. They comment on how beautiful you look or just, it's just not what you want to hear from somebody when you're standing there naked in front of them.
No.
And they just like, I'm just trying to give you a compliment. It's like, yeah, but it's really not appropriate in this point in time. So
no, good point. I've got Paul on the line now. No? I've got Paul on the line now. No, we haven't. All right, well, can I ask you, Stuart, how do you find our attitudes, our Australian attitudes, differ compared to, say, in Europe? Are they more liberal there? Why are they?
Look, it's interesting you should say that. I met a couple that have recently come here to Australia. They're in their, I suppose, late 20s, early 30s, from Slovenia. And they just couldn't get over the fact that we were so uptight. We have a local beach here, Samurai Beach, which is a legal nude beach. When they found out that I published Tan, they sort of, obviously that was something that they mentioned, have you been down there? I said, of course, and I said, have you? And they said, oh, yeah. And they can't understand why there aren't more legal nude beaches around and why everyone's so hung up about their bodies. And I think this is something that it's just sort of, it reflects perhaps a bit more of our stoic culture, a bit more of our prudish culture. I mean, we've got beautiful Queensland with all their gorgeous beaches and not a legal nude beach in Queensland.
Right.
And that's, again, just doesn't make any sense. So, yes, that is a very big difference. We've had a lot of overseas visitors that sort of say, you've got this beautiful country, you've got these beautiful resources, and yet everyone's hung up about having to wear swimming costumes that don't keep you warm and don't stop you from getting wet, and all they're there for is to provide so-called modesty.
Right. Well, we've just had someone say that there are a few nudist beaches on the Sunshine Coast. So I'm not sure if they're well known or they're new, but that's something to check out. Now we're going to Paul.
They're not legal.
They're not legal.
Unofficial.
Right. Unofficial. I see.
They're unofficial.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to Paul in Janelli now, and Paul used to or still goes to a place in the Southern Highlands. How are you, Paul?
Good evening, and thank you. Yes, I used to visit a place called River Island. It might be known to you folks there. It's in the Southern Highland. It's a clothing-free resort. Very good, but it's slightly hard to get to. You can only get there by your own transport. What amazes me, and this happened to me only recently, and I was in the Cronulla Beach and wearing a pair of Speedos, and I pulled them up slightly so I could get some sun to my rear end because I have a bit of psoriasis. and someone came over to me and said, "Could you mind covering up?" And I thought, wow, there's girls walking around here with G-strings on virtually, and I was told to cover up. What is it that people will not accept the fact that nudity is so taboo amongst maybe children or other adults that they just think it's disgusting and say we're born like that, we're taken away like that? At the end of the day, people think a nude body, especially a man's, probably not so pretty as a woman's, but that's your opinion, someone's opinion, is so disgusting. And what I don't understand is that opinion. But I find that since I no longer have a partner, and I'm also vision impaired, there's nowhere that I know of in the Sydney metropolitan area where you can gather just for a coffee or a chat with people who enjoy the non-clothing situation.
Well, there's a business opportunity there for someone. Thanks a lot, Paul, for joining us, and thanks for all those lovely comments. If I can go back to you, Stuart, do you think that we'll see an increase in businesses that cater to nudists as the movement grows amongst the younger generation? Yeah,
look, I think the population increase is such that it becomes more viable to have a naturist business. And so, I think like a lot of people, there's going to be entrepreneurs that will see the opportunity. There are a couple of resorts, particularly up in Queensland, that run a dual resort. They'll have one web page for the naturist community and one web page for the textile community. If textile books a particular weekend, then it's a textile weekend, and if a naturist books, then it'll be a naturist weekend. So there are some hybrids out there as well. So there are a couple of differing types of opportunities for people. I think the one that's perhaps yet to be tapped is sort of gated communities. I'd love to see a gated community that was clothing optional.
Right, so the entire community lives without clothes altogether. Yeah, it's been done in the States. In Florida, they have a situation where you have to be clothed on the street, but then everything behind that, all the backyards are open into these large communal areas, and that's all clothing optional. Oh, terrific. Have you ever tried nudism? Are you reluctant? Have you loved it? What's your experience been? Or maybe you've been very adventurous and gone on one of those nude cruises around the Caribbean that Dan was talking about. We'd love to hear your comments. Fascinating discussion here with Dan Adamick, the founder of the Young Nudists of Australia, his partner Natasha Day, and Stuart Whelan. He's a former operator of Le Chateau Naturiste, and he's joining us from Port Stephens, and he's the publisher and editor of Tan magazine. I wanted to ask you guys about, there's a famous artist, Spencer Tunick, that you would all know, that stages these mass nude shoots here in Australia. Now, they're always oversubscribed, and the more people want to join them than can. Why is that? Is that a different aspect of nudity? Is that more an exhibitionism? How do you describe those events?
I definitely think it's more of an exhibitionist type of behaviour. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of bucket list thing to do. But it also does encourage people like ourselves who are into naturism to have an experience like that. His artwork is very popular, and he's sort of, he's making the human body a natural thing with his artwork.
Right. And what about you, Dan? What do you think of his work?
I think his artwork's fantastic. Yeah, I do agree with Tash. There's some exhibitionist sort of mentalities and persons that would apply to it. But to me personally, and Tash as well, I know Tash has also applied and actually was successful, but unfortunately due to circumstances we couldn't attend. But, to be a part of that for us as naturists would be fantastic. An international artist, photographer, putting artwork out there constantly and being a part of that community of people. I mean, that would be the greatest thing to do, I believe, so far. We've done a lot of things with YNOA, and that would be number one. at this point in time.
And I guess he's popularising it and mainstreaming it as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's good to break the barriers, and he's doing that on social media. He's had some triumphs and he's had some downfalls, but he's fighting a good fight, and it's the fight of equality, and that is it.
Okay, we've got another call here from Coast. Oh no, we haven't. All right. Sorry about that. If I can ask you also about Spencer Tunick and his endeavours, do you think there are any negative spin-offs from what he does in terms of the promotion of nudism?
I'm going to say that it probably gets emails upon emails and messages of criticism and hate, like anybody does within this world, because it seems to spread quite sporadically. When it comes to the nude human body, I'd say that he would have his people and haters, I guess you could call them, as we call them, amongst his circle of people that harass him, and I believe it does affect his personal life. I would he doesn't sort of talk about it, but if you look behind the screens, he's a very busy man. He's a family man also, but I think people just need to push away their thoughts and opinions about their own personal human body. When under clothes, they are naked themselves.
Yeah. Now, if someone, listening to this conversation thinks, okay, you've got me over the line, I'm willing to explore this, they've signed up with your organisations, what will they expect? What's the first step? Take us through what a typical event would involve, and they rocked up and they were feeling a little uncomfortable and not knowing what to expect.
Well, we opened our doors in our own home, basically. We open up the opportunity to go, hey, we are opening our door for you. You're a part of our group. You're verified. And we give them the opportunity. It's not a forced kind of situation. You want to come in, that's fine. You don't want to come, that's fine as well. That's fine with us.
And you don't have to be naked straight away. If you're a new person who's wanting to try it out for the time, it's like, look, you declothe at your own rate and at your own pace in time, and if it doesn't make you feel comfortable, then it's not mandatory. But most people generally feel odd when they're in a room with naked people and they're fully clothed, and they soon get it. And they just,
I don't know, I wouldn't mind it.
But they realise that, it's a safe environment. They feel comfortable and, yeah.
And what about you, Stuart? What about the events that you hold or you go to? How do people new to it, how do they get, welcomed?
It really does depend on the circumstance. If people want to try it for the first time and they don't have access to social groups or whatnot, and they decide to go to a nude beach or a legal clothing optional beach, the one thing I'd suggest to them is to pick a spot in the middle of the beach. Don't go to the peripheries. Find a nice spot in the middle of the beach and just take the step.
I'm scared to ask, but why not go to the peripheries? What happens there?
Well, it's a public space, and there are no controls such as Dan and Natasha have got in place. So there are some people that go down there for voyeuristic purposes, and down at Cobbler's there was a chap who decided to have a good long look at some of the ladies down there, and one of the ladies spotted him and stood up and just pointed at him and went, "Pervert," and all the ladies turned around and pointed at him, and you should have seen him run. So that's the sort of thing that you pick a spot that's well populated, and that's a great entree into the naturist world.
And so what do you think the future for naturism and nudism is in Australia? Do you think that we will become less and less prudish, even though we're living in increasingly conservative times, aren't we?
Yes. People have said to me in the past, and I'm a bit of a historian, I've explored the history of naturism, and there's always been the death knell of naturism. Oh, we haven't got young people coming in. Oh, it's going to die. There's doom, gloom and despondency. The reality is that people will come to naturism at different stages in their lives. Some lucky ones will get there early, some unlucky ones will never get there, but there seems to be a magic point, a magic age of between sort of 35 and 40, where particularly the ladies sort of say, okay, look, I think I've been sold a real disservice here, putting so much focus on the body. This is my body. If you don't like it, stuff it. And I want to experience this freedom. And, they'll go down, instead of just taking their top off at the beach, they'll strip off completely and enjoy it and realise that, they have been sold a bill of goods. That, the reality is that people aren't there, they're all, every eye is not going to be on you because everyone else is naked as well. So there's no observer and subject.
Yeah.
It's just everyone's there for the same purpose. Get the gear off and relax.
Yeah, get the gear off. And Dan, what are your thoughts for the future?
Well, I want to say thank you to Stuart, by the way. You're the first magazine and first sort of media production I've sort of read to get me back into the naturist lifestyle. So I tip my hat to you, sir. Fantastic. And to anybody at home that doesn't have social media and think that naturism is dying, you're completely incorrect. You check out social media these days, you talk to your grandkids and talk about social media and how things and hashtags and how everything works. Get involved, get amongst it, because naturism itself is expanding. Social media is that perpetuator. And young people like ourselves, we're on it all the bloody time. And when we get the opportunity, we'll be on it, and it is growing. The one thing that is dying is the federations. The old hand of, national federations, and you do have the International Naturist Federation, and that is something that is dying. These things aren't surviving. Naturism in the aspect, is it growing? Yes. Is the federations dying? Yes, they are.
And Natasha, what are your thoughts about the future? Do you think more and more women will discover nudism as a way to feel more comfortable about their bodies?
I do indeed, and I think as the body positive movement progresses, I think that's why a lot of women have taken the jump into, trying it out or even just going to the local nudist beach with their girlfriends and, trying to be brave together. That's that type of thing. And they really start to appreciate their bodies a lot more. But I definitely think it's a big push for naturism. And
Stuart, it cuts down on your clothing bill, I assume?
Oh, absolutely. It's good for the environment. Just think of all the money you're saving on electricity.
So true.
How small is your wardrobe, I wonder?
Oh, very small.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking to Dan Adamic, founder of the Young Nudists of Australia, and Natasha Day, who's also a member and Dan's partner, and Stuart Whelan, former operator of Le Chateau Naturiste in Port Stephens, New South Wales. He's also the publisher and editor of Tan magazine. So thank you very much, guys. What are you going to do now for the rest of your night?
Go home and get naked.
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like a great plan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Oh, isn't that terrific? I'm going to have to take... maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. If I said I was going to take some clothes off, would that scare off listeners, or would it attract them? You never quite know.
You've been listening to a Nightlife podcast. For more great conversations about the issues that impact you, as well as features on travel and food, head to the Nightlife webpage. You'll find it at abc.net.au/nightlife. You don't need to be a night owl to enjoy the nightlife.